Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today I have the opportunity to work on a Fin-Nor reel. This reel actually came in with a broken bail spring that was repaired, and we're going to do the full tune-up of this as well. This is a Fin-Nor Ahab, Conquer the Sea. It's a size 16. Interestingly enough, I got an email yesterday or the day before from Charles, said, do I have this piece? And we've been sending pictures back and forth, trying to figure out how that piece all works. And the next thing I know, one of these arrives for service. So, well, we're going to service this. Charles will see how it gets serviced. And if anybody has that bail waiting there, well, Charles needs it. Okay, we're going to start by taking this reel off and pieces and parts. We'll take it all apart, service it, show you how it's done, and if you have one of these, you'll be able to do it yourself. If you like these types of videos, I would encourage you to subscribe to my channel. If you do subscribe to my channel, please use the notification button. That way you'll see all of the fishing reels that I service. It's a wide variety. You're basically looking over the shoulder as I service reels in my shop. And, well, you never know what's going to show up. Like I said, this one showed up right at the time when somebody was asking about a replacement part. Okay, the Fin-Nor is an interesting one. This I get a question on this all the time, this little wing up on top. It serves no purpose other than to give you additional grip to adjust that inner button. This is the button that controls the drag tension. And we're going to start by removing the spool. We do that by turning that in a counterclockwise manner. And then we can take the spool off, and you'll see there's a massive cork drag underneath here. That is the drag for the reel. Just make sure it stays flexible. If it's not flexible, you may want to re-lube it. You can use fishing reel grease. Cork is porous, and the whole idea behind the grease is to keep it flexible. While I have that open, and before I start doing much more, I'm just going to clean off the face of that, because I do notice there is some film or old grease on that piece. So that needs to be taken care of. Okay, let's go down now. We should be able to remove the handle by turning it in the counterclockwise manner. And this reel is in very nice shape. And the only problem with it, as I mentioned, was the bail trip lever here. It has a little hook inside of it that sets into the carrier, and that plastic piece broke. So we were able to find a metal piece to replace it, and it's all good now. Well, it looks like there's 3 case screws to hold this on. I'm going to flip this into an override position to off, just to well, avoid any issues that may occur when disassembling the reel. We actually have 2 overrides. That's always interesting. We'll see what the other one does. Probably a click. One will be a click and one will be an override for the anti-reverse. That's a feature found on some of the older Penn bigger model reels. And interestingly enough, Fin-Nor was recently acquired by Penn, probably in the last 2 years. It was established as an independent company back in the 1930s down in Miami, Florida. They made offshore reels, and quite honestly, their offshore reels today are still among the best. Thinking Marquesa. When I take these screws off, I want to make sure they're all the same and then put them into a parts tray. We can remove the side plate after we remove those 3 screws. You'll see the setup underneath is more or less a traditional setup, but it does have an additional bearing riding on the inner track here for that crosswind block. So that bearing will take some tension off of the crosswind block, prevent a little bit of wiggle, and make it a smoother operating reel. Next step then is you want to remove your small flathead screw that's holding the axle shaft into the crosswind block. I'm going to hold that and pull up on the axle shaft. That came out nice and easy, so we're good there. I think what we just found out is there is a noisemaker. It's right here, and I'm thinking that's probably what that override is. Or is it? Okay, so that's the click ring. When you're going in reverse, This is going to intersect in here, and when your drag is letting out, that's going to be your noise maker. Okay. Alright, so let's just flip this for a moment. There you go, that's it. So this is the on-off switch for the forward noise maker. We're going to put that in the off position. Almost got in trouble there. I wasn't paying attention, reeling the reel, and sometimes these crosswind blocks can get caught up or jammed if you're not paying attention. Alright, we're going to clean up this crosswind block. This reel is pretty clean. It's very clean on the outside. And internally we just have the evidence that there's some old greases in there that have dried. And we're going to do our best just to kind of clean them up. Relube this reel and get this reel out there fishing again. Okay, as I mentioned, the issue with the reel was that it lost its bail trip. And unfortunately, there's a lot of plastic parts that go into reels. This one doesn't have too many of them, but of course it had the plastic part right on that little hook arm for the trip lever. Alright, okay, we've cleaned up all the exterior greases there. Let's take a cotton swab, run it through the channel here, make sure that the channel for your crosswind block is clean. Put that into your parts tray and continue with the disassembly. Next up then, we can remove the main gear and bearing assembly. Just simply pull it out. The bearing should come off. Good place to tell you to take pictures. If you don't know the reel, if you haven't worked on the reel recently, pictures are the best way to help you to determine the orientation of pieces and parts, and to help you with the reassembly if you get stuck. Talk about stuck. Here's a feature that's kind of unique to the Fin-Nor reel. It has a removable oscillation gear drive on the back. I'll just take that off to clean it. Looks like there's a little bit of grease in the channel here for the handles. Take that off. We'll do one more cleaning with that cotton swab, then we'll get rid of it. There's a lot of grease that was trapped on the inner ring from the spinning of it. Centrifugal force pulls it in and off the gears, and it kind of settles there. Next up then, I'm taking a hard brush and I'm coming through the teeth and onto my paper towel. That's pulling the old grease off and out of the teeth. Then inspect the teeth. This is a nice heavy-duty gear. I'm going to think that this is a stainless steel gear. As I mentioned, this reel is very well made. On that bearing, I'm going to oil that. And then we should be able to take the oscillation gear out. I want to see if that's held in by a screw. It's not. So I'm just going to grab my micro pliers and the stud here and pull that off. And we can finish the case cleaning. Excuse me. Okay, those pieces and parts go into my parts tray. I'm going to take a penetrating oil, let it puddle up in there to help me with the degreasing of this. Again, this reel is in pretty clean condition, so you don't have to worry too much about it. You want to make sure that you get the old greases and dirt out of the cavities. There is always the chance that that's holding some kind of contaminant or some sand or something. And well, if you don't take care of cleaning it up, the next thing you know is it's floating around in the reel, and it could damage the gears or other moving parts. Alright, one more thing to do then is to remove the rotor here so that we can service that upper gear side. We have a tie down screw, and then we have a top rotor nut. Not sure on the rotor nut size, so while I'm looking for the right wrench, I'll encourage you to ask questions. And it doesn't have to be on this reel. It can be on any reel. Maybe you're working on one and you're stuck. Well, if you are, I can try to help you get unstuck. If you just leave the question in the comment section to this reel. Alright, that's a 14 millimeter nut. We're going to remove that. And we should see a traditional anti-reverse, not an infinite one. We got an infinite one in here. Okay, this is going to control the anti-reverse, right? Right, that's coming off the stem. We got 3 screws holding that assembly together. And then this is your click mechanism that moves in and out off the other throw. Well, I always get nervous with these because I'm not sure if it's a sealed bearing we're working with or if it's one of those roller bearing ones. And I just had the joy of rebuilding a roller bearing one on a Okuma. That if you can avoid taking them off, you want to do that. We want to get down to the pinion gear, do the cleaning there. Okay, those 3 tie-down screws, I'm going to leave them right on my desk here. Then we should be able to pull this whole assembly up and out. We have the anti-reverse bearing, which I'm not going to touch. We have the main bearing. I'm going to do my best just to keep this assembly together because I just don't know if there was a free spooling roller bearings in there. And I don't need to get adventurous at this point. Okay, I do need to change the paper towel. It's getting a little bit dirty. And what we want to do now is just clean all of the tracks in that pinion gear. And I don't think this reel's been serviced before. It's in very good condition. I'm not seeing an indication of a heavy usage at all. I just probably think it's a freak that that piece on the bail just broke as quickly as it did. But regardless, it's been repaired. Okay, I'm checking the cavities now. That runs fine. I'm going to do the same thing with the bearing here. We're going to oil that. It's a shielded bearing. It's not a sealed bearing. We'll take some fishing reel grease. I'm using Penn Precision reel grease. I guess that's okay now. It's the company's owned by Penn. I don't have a preference for fishing reel greases. You can use whichever ones you like. Just make sure they're fishing reel greases. Give it a good coating there. The bearing's been greased, oiled. Now when we reset this, there is a cavity here that's got the hex on it. Line that up and then line up the toggle for that override. Okay, we're all set. I want to make sure that I had this hex plastic flush with the case. Now we can take the 3 screws and put those back in that are the tie-down screws. So early on when they started doing with these instant anti-reverses, it got a little crazy. Most of them were open-faced roller bearing systems with a cap on them, similar to what we're looking at here. Almost totally unserviceable. And then they eventually went to the sealed clutches, and that's what you'll find in most modern reels now. You won't find the older assemblies. The older assemblies are very popular with Shimano, and well, the ones that introduced them, right? Quantum, Shimano, Okuma. But thank goodness they've moved on to those roller clutches. Okay, that's it for the top end now, so we can put the I notice there's a little dirt underneath the rotor here, so we'll take care of that right away. Let's wipe it out. Again, you don't want to leave any dirt in there if you can avoid it. It's only going to assist in contamination. You'll notice underneath here there is no trip lever. This is what I call a bang bail. When the bail comes around, it's going to slap the side of the reel foot here. That's what's going to cause it to trip. And it's got a spring assist when it trips. And that's what was broken on this one. It was doing what I call the ballerina dance. It got halfway extended and then kind of just twirled. Okay, we're going to just tighten down the rotor nut. grab our rotor set screw. We'll go back and we'll reinstall the base of this. So Fin-Nor is being positioned right about at the Penn level. So Penn has got about 10 brands now. Fin-Nor is being one of them. They've got Mitchell, they've got Shakespeare and Pfluger, they've got Abu, Penn, Van Staal. Van Staal came over in the same sale with Fin-Nor. They were previously owned by Zebco. Zebco got sold to Brother Products, and it only brought in the Zebco and Quantum lines. Fin-Nor and Van Staal were divested at that point, and they went over to Penn, Pure Fishing. All right, this is the way you set that back end of the drive. You want to mesh it into the teeth right there. It's a hard thing to do if you left it on the drive, because that gear bumps this stand here. We gotta grease the main gear. So this is a size 16. Go figure. Every manufacturer seems to want to change the sizing for some reason, and that's a complaint we hear frequently. Why don't they just standardize a size? And I don't know the answer to that question. But this is a size 16. Most of the time this one would line up with a size 60 or a 70 reel, or a 6,000 and 7,000. That's how crazy it gets, right? A little bit of grease onto your crosswind block. Make sure there's grease onto the face of the oscillation gear. Slip that under the override bar and make sure that the stud is in that cavity. If it's not in that cavity, it's not going to work. We've oiled this bearing. We'll put that bearing back on. Now you want to find your axle shaft, make sure it's clean. Again, this is very high quality materials in this one. We'll bring that through the pinion gear. Then we want to merge it into the crosswind block and the flat side. The flat side of this is going to be facing forward. Find your flat-headed Phillips head screw. That's the next part. And bring that in. Tighten that off to make sure that the axle shaft stays secured. Okay. Now we want to get our case. That should just snap on nicely. If it doesn't snap on nicely, go back and check your work. It needs to be a nice flat fit with tight seams. 3 screws. I have those in my parts tray. They are all the same from a screw standpoint. So go ahead and just make sure they are seated properly in the holes. It doesn't matter which one goes in which holes. There is some manufacturers out there that use different size screws for different holes in the side plate. You just want to be aware of it. And if you find that, you need to mark that location. Otherwise, you might find yourself in some trouble when reinstalling a reel. Particularly the ones that have those baffle plates and bump guards and all kinds of fancy little cosmetic things on them. Alright, we got one more. Those are long screws. Every now and then I get a question about using a mechanical screwdriver to set the screws on these, particularly from folks that they have weaker hands or issues with hand strength and the like. You can use it, but don't tighten them down all the way. Take that last turn or two with your hand. That way you don't risk fracturing the case. Okay, that's that. That's a beautiful handle too. That's a nice wheel all around. Well, normally we would have a top to service on the spool, but this one, as you saw, has just got a massive bottom drag. we're just going to take that drag washer. Cork is porous, so I'm going to use drag grease. I'm going to rub it in there because I want to keep that cork lubricated. Now the lubrication is not going to do anything for the drag, so in terms of max drag or anything like that, drag performance, so wipe off the excess. You just want to get it into the pores, and you want to be able to see the face of the drag. Okay, that can just sit back on top of this. We can bring our spool over. Now we have our button again. And again, those wings on this spool, well, they're there just to assist you. It's easier to kind of grab the nut and the wing and turn it to make that adjustment. Okay, and what I want to do before I leave this reel, I want to put a rubber band around that line because there is no tie down on this one, or clip to hold it. And I notice it's kind of coming undone. And we'll talk about one more fun fact here. Okay, one of the interesting things with this Fin-Nor reel is you can change the spool without changing the drag tensioning. And all you have to do simply is grab the spool and turn it, and you'll see you can turn the spool and unscrew it. We're going to turn it, screw it back down. But you can swap the spool out without touching your preset on your drag. And that's important if you, for example, you like the drag that you're running and you just want to switch to a higher or lower pound test. All right, this one's tight, so you can back that drag off if you like. That'll save the life of the drag. Let's give it a final test. Okay, so now we all know that this little piece under here is that noisemaker. Just flip that switch, and that part is disabled. We've got this set in the off motion. Let's switch that back on, and our instant anti-reverse is working. So that's it. That's your Fin-Nor Ahab size 16 reel, Conquer the Sea, the Ahab by Fin-Nor. Beautiful reel, nice high quality parts. And Charles, I now know what piece we're looking for on that bail arm right there. Okay, if you've enjoyed that, please like the video. Again, please subscribe if you like to see these types of videos as I post frequently. And I'd like to take a moment to thank our first responders and essential personnel, everybody involved in keeping us safe. Thank you for all it is that you do. To everyone, please stay safe and stay well. Keep your tackle well maintained and ready to go fishing because the fish are out there, and you don't want to be left behind with equipment that's well, not up to snuff. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.